All right, back on the record, the matter of Gregory Martin, case 24PR00777. All parties are back present in court. Ms. Martin is back in the witness stand. Ms. Martin, you are still under oath. And I believe we were with you, Ms. Wilkes, on cross. Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you think it's fair for Adult Protection Service Megan Hoffman, to accuse Selena Wilkes and Earl Wisdom of financially abusing your dad, Gregory Martin, without any proof?
I don't know what proof they have, but I think it is fair. If you guys had access to his financial information.
Were you aware that for 6 months Mr. Martin took care of his own finances?
No.
Did you and your brother, Greg Jr., contact Megan Hoffman on December 13th, 2023?
I don't remember. Is that the time he was in the hospital? You said December the 13th?
Yeah, 2023.
I don't recall.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilkes. That takes us to Ms. Schlossberg. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martin, for being here today. So I've got a couple questions for you. You were asked a lot of questions about service and those kind of items. Do you have any personal knowledge of what the service requirements are under Oregon Revised Statute 125?
No.
If you would you know one way or another if it was done correctly?
No.
Okay. And you mentioned that your father had turned down offers on his properties before, and he referred to those as your inheritance?
The property was supposed to be left for his kids.
Do you know anything about the Martin Family Pledge Agreement?
No.
Okay. Do you know anything about a power of attorney that your father executed for Mr. Waleed?
No.
Okay. Anything about a UCC filing that Mr. Waleed would be able to do to secure property?
No.
Okay. Are you aware of the $33 million UCC claim that you're named in securing property for Mr. Waleed?
I did get a copy of that legal document.
Are you also aware of the federal lawsuit for $7.5 million that, again, is against a variety of people, including you, for the benefit of Mr. Waleed?
Yes, I was served this morning when I got off the elevator.
Okay. Do you believe that your dad is susceptible to things like coercion?
What are you asking?
There's a lot of testimony about the agreement he had with Mr. Corman on selling property. Do you believe he was susceptible to bad ideas, essentially?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe he could also be susceptible to coercion from Ms. Wilkes?
Yes.
What about from Mr. Wisdom?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember if you were here that day or not, but there was an APS investigation done. I believe multiple. One was against your sister, Miss Breather. Do you know the result of that investigation?
No.
Would you be surprised to know that she was cleared of any wrongdoing?
Yes, I would be surprised.
Okay. Do you know the result of the APS investigation against Mrs. Wilkes?
Not all the details.
Would you be surprised to know that they founded elder abuse against Miss Wilkes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what a power of attorney means?
Yes. That a person is responsible either for their medical or financial, they're responsible for those transactions. I am power of attorney for my mom.
Okay. There was a little bit of testimony about payments that weren't being received from the Luca Gorman contract. If Selena Wilkes and Mr. Wisdom were the powers of attorney for your father at the time, do you believe it was their job to protect your father's interests?
Yes.
Do you believe it?
Objection.
Overruled.
From your own personal knowledge, do you believe that they have done anything to protect his interests?
No.
Objection.
Overruled.
There was also some testimony about, sounds like a difficult situation between Ms. Brethauer and you with regard to care for your dad about communication. Well, Ms. Wilkes...
Objection, she's given testimony.
It's the same.
While Ms. Wilkes and Mr. Wisdom were in charge of your father's care, did you receive very much contact?
No. None. I was unable to find out where my father was.
Okay. And you attempted to find out where he was?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe it's someone who has power of attorney, it's their responsibility to do someone's tax return, to cause it to be done?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw your father?
Probably last month at the VA hospital. I haven't seen him at his new location.
Okay. And you know where his new location's at?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you say that he would be able to make medical decisions for himself?
No.
Would you be able to say he'd make financial decisions for himself?
No way. No.
So at this point, is it your belief that he is in need of somebody to make those decisions for him?
Very much so. Yes.
Okay. And what is your experience with the court-appointed fiduciaries with regard to your father?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Sure. What have been your experience with Gazelle Fuller and Jackie Fosbeck, the court-appointed fiduciaries?
Oh, my interaction, my experience with them.
Yeah.
They've been keeping me in the loop. You know, we talk a lot by text, but she does keep me informed, especially when I'm looking for him to figure out what room he's in. So I really appreciate it. And she said that she would continue to keep us in the loop and let us know and be part of that decision.
Okay. Do you feel that if your brother was, Mr. Waleed, was acting as, through a power of attorney or in any way in charge of your father, that you would have that same availability to know what's going on?
No.
Do you believe there's a possibility he would take your father away from Oregon?
Yes.
And how would you feel about that?
I don't think that should happen.
Okay.
He needs 24/7 care.
Okay. And we mentioned that lawsuit that you're involved with. Do you believe that Mr. Waleed would be able to defend your father's position in a lawsuit where he personally is suing your father?
Objection.
Overruled.
No.
Okay.
It's conflict of interest.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have any concerns with Oregon Advocates Gazelle Fuller being appointed, continue to have a full appointment from the court in a permanent situation?
I don't have concerns. I have more questions. You know, what does it mean for you guys to be the permanent guardian and conservatorship? You know, how does that impact his family? How are we involved when something does happen to him? You know, those kind of things. I have more questions than concerns, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Do you feel comfortable being able to ask her those questions?
Yes. I mean, yes.
Okay. Would you support the idea of your brother being appointed, Mr. Waleed being appointed as a guardian or conservator for your father?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Would you support the idea of Ms. Wilkes continuing to use her power of attorney on behalf of your father?
Objection.
No.
Overruled. Would you support Earl Wisdom continuing to use the power of attorney?
Oh my gosh, no.
Okay. No more questions, Hunter.
Thank you. Almost done, ma'am. Thank you.
Lee?
Mr. Rudolph.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Martin. My name is Nathan Rudolph. I'm the court-appointed attorney for your father.
So you represent?
I represent your father.
Okay,
I just have a few questions for you.
all right.
Can you describe your relationship with your father prior to his most recent stroke and hospitalization?
My relationship. So all of us had a different relationship with him, but I was the person who was always in between my mom and dad, any conflict they had, because I was the one who was at the house. Dad knows that I will stand up for mom even if it's a conflict with him. And he appreciated me standing up to him at the same time. And I also was his emergency contact if anything happened to him.
And did your father ever talk to you about his relationship with your brother, Mr. Wally?
Yeah, he talked about all of us to each other and whatever was going on.
What did he say about his relationship with Mr. Wally?
Hearsay, objection, hearsay.
Overruled. Party opponent.
The last time my father spoke about my,
I mean, actually, back up.
sorry,
Not a party opponent. You're asking
Oh.
about a statement from a witness, Mr. I just want to make sure I answer your question. You're asking what your client said to her, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, he's not an opponent to you, so that is hearsay. That's objection sustained. Unless there's another exception that I'm missing, you can point it out.
so don't answer that question.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry, that's a long way of saying don't answer that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
If there's another exception, I'm open. But if
No, Your Honor, I'm not offering this for the truth of any of the statements. I'm offering it to for Mr. Martin's opinion on Mr. Wally.
Objection.
Can you just repeat the question for me again, then?
The question was, the lead-up question was, did Mr. Martin ever express his opinion about Mr. Wally?
Okay, so that's a yes or no answer. So that
And the answer
question's
was
okay.
yes, he
Yeah.
did. And then the next question was, what did he express?
I don't know how it would be taken by anything other than for the truth of the matter asserted. So, for example, if he says, I love Mr. Waleed, you'd be offering it to show that he likes him. If he says, I don't like Mr. Waleed, you'd be offering it to show he doesn't like him. Logically, I don't know how it can be taken any other way than for the truth of the matter asserted. So that's objection sustained.
Do you think your father trusted Mr. Wally?
No.
Objection, that's hearsay.
Do you,
That objection is overruled.
based on your relationship with your father, how do you think he would feel about being sued by Mr. Wally for $7.5 million?
He'd have a problem with that.
Do you think that your father would also want Mr. Waleed acting as power of attorney for him at the same time that he's filing a lawsuit for $7.5 million?
No. My brother was never even listed as an emergency contact.
No further questions.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Mr. Waleed, this is your witness?
Yes.
So you get to do redirect.
Stay in
Again,
the scope.
it's within the context of some
everybody's-
clarifying questions about what happened on cross-examination. Nothing new. And this is the last piece, ma'am, okay? All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Alexander, didn't you recently, when I first asked you questions or about trust, isn't it a belief or true that our father never trusted anybody?
Not to the full extent. He also told us not to trust anyone.
So what does that mean? Is that kind of a double hearsay or it coming
Not
from
a
our
double
father?
hearsay. What would Dad say about you? Just say
I
it.
can't. I would be testifying. You have to answer the question. You can't ask.
You really want me to answer the question?
Well, yeah. I asked you the question.
Dad would say you ain't shit, and you have no business doing what you're doing.
Okay.
He had
is
a
that
problem the last time I talked to him of your name even coming up, and
okay?
you already know this.
Let her answer the
Okay.
question, Mr. Waleed.
Okay.
Ma'am, you can continue to answer the question. If you're done, then we'll hear the next question. Are you done? Okay. Mr. Waleed, next question.
Do you think it's a conflict of interest for you to serve Dad and take the other 50% he owns in Mama's house?
He didn't own 50% in mom's house. That was mom's house. She's the one who paid for it. And you already know this. You know that your father didn't do anything. And there wasn't a conflict. We tried to work with our father. Who paid for the house, Rossi?
My father did.
No, he didn't. And we have the receipts.
You got a default judgment against our father, correct?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
Means you can answer the question.
Yes, you can answer that.
Yes.
And how did you obtain that default judgment against our father?
What do you mean, how did I obtain it?
Was it through process server? Was it through mail? How did you get a default judgment that gave you 50% of the house?
Again, it wasn't 50%.
You're not answering the question. How did you get the default judgment?
What do you mean, how did I get it? So it was through, he was served papers.
Okay. How was he served?
He was served in person, the papers.
Are you sure about that?
Positive. My attorney's here to add any additional detail.
Well, you do know she has a lawsuit too against her and her firm, don't you? For that same process server?
I just found out today.
So, question is, where did you serve, or where was our father allegedly served in July 2022?
Objection, or we're outside of the scope, I think, of the cause.
We're not.
I agree we're outside of the scope, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay. Who is Toya Tanner?
Objection, we're outside of the scope.
Well, I'll give him some leeway if you can connect it to something.
It's not. It's his girlfriend. How is she relevant?
Okay, we're all going to just pause.
Okay.
And we're going to remember where we're at. This is not a free-flowing conversation between parties. The court does, however, recognize that this is an extremely emotional time. And that's not lost on me. But there will be decorum in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Waleed, if you can re-ask your question, go ahead.
Did you or your counsel obtain a default judgment at Toya Tanner's home?
Objection, we're outside the scope again.
No, it's not.
Can you tell me what this has anything to do with the case, Mr. Waleed, please?
She mentioned a conflict of interest about our father and property and assets, and she obtained a default judgment at his girlfriend's house in July of 2022, and I'm just trying to bring that, does she know where this process server went, and allege my father received service when we have proof that he wasn't even there?
Yeah, I'm going to sustain the objection. I think we're just really getting.
Okay. Do you think it's a conflict of interest to sue Dad while he was incapacitated or his early stages of dementia in 2022?
Objection, assuming facts outside of evidence.
Overruled. You can answer.
I was not aware of his capacity.
Didn't you just testify before the court that our father has been out of his mind, kind of, for the last few years?
I did not testify to that.
Did you know that our father was picked up by the Portland police for being in his vehicle on several occasions and he didn't know where he was?
No, I'm only aware of that one incident where they took him to the VA hospital.
Do you know when that was?
I don't recall. I don't remember the date.
Was it July 2022?
I don't recall. I don't know the date.
Was it around the time that you received or you served a default judgment against our father?
This was after.
Who is Toya Tanner to our father?
Girlfriend.
What else do you know about Toya Tanner that would be of interest to this court in this proceeding?
I don't know what you're asking me. She
Was
wasn't a
Toya
friend
Tanner?
of mine, so I didn't know her.
Didn't you go to school with Toya Tanner?
I went to school with her. She was younger than me, but I didn't know her. I wasn't friends with her. I didn't hang out with her. So I don't know her.
Did our father love her and care about her?
I don't know. He had many girlfriends.
Would he give his girlfriend $20,000?
I don't know what.
Objection, again, we're outside the scope of the
Sustain.
cross.
You don't have to.
Okay. In our father's eyes, do you think it would be a conflict of interest for his alleged attorney, his alleged conservator, and court conservators counsel to be objecting to certain issues that our father would want to hear?
Objection, we're outside the scope.
Sustained. You don't have to answer.
Okay, I was going. What does that mean again? Okay.
That's okay.
Have you ever seen before this hearing Nathan Rudolph, our father's court-appointed attorney?
This gentleman right here.
Yes.
No, my first time was in August when I came to court.
Did you know on July 29th we had a hearing?
No,
Were you available?
I wasn't informed about any hearing.
Again, objection, we're outside the scope of the cross.
Sustained. You don't have to answer that.
Okay.
I'm going to ask some questions about Don that we talked about earlier, and I heard questions go around the room. On December the 13th, 2023, do you recall me contacting the Adult Protective Services reporting Dad's alleged kidnapping, alleged missing, violation of maybe his rights? We didn't see that. Do you remember me getting information from you and making that call and giving Megan Huffman your phone number?
Yes,
Did Megan Huffman ever call you back?
I don't believe so.
When father was alleged to be incapacitated in March of 2024, did you receive a call from Adult Protective Services or from the Guardians?
March?
2024.
I don't recall.
Do you recall or did you know that our father was diagnosed as being incapacitated in March of 2024?
No. I just know about Don. Don is the one who broke down and said that he had dementia in May.
Of what year?
I don't know. When he was at the Burnside place and he left.
Do you also recall shortly after the Adult Protective Services, they took an intake report, do you recall our father being in Good Samaritan Hospital in last year in December of 2023?
Yes.
Do you also recall that he came into the hospital and his feet were swollen?
Yes.
Didn't you go see our father?
Yes.
Do you recall that Earl and the other power of attorney, Selena, was not supposed to, or they suspended their access to be power of attorney at the Good Samaritan Hospital?
They suspended, like they were no longer the power of attorney?
For a moment. Do you remember the Adult Protective Services lady saying that she was investigating?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you remember any of the experience of our father at the Good Samaritan Hospital in December?
Yes, I was the one who went down. You live in another state. I went down there. They allowed us to see him for a couple of days, and then they told us that Selena is the power of attorney, and we can't. She's not allowing us to see our father, and we didn't know where his whereabouts were. That's what I remember and what I recall. I think it was maybe a week. I was able to go down there twice, and then I was not able to visit with him any longer. And then he left the hospital.
Objection.
With Selena.
Objection.
Overruled.
Do you know of our father not paying his bills?
What do you mean, not paying his bills?
Do you get letters from foreclosure from the city of Portland, from the county of Multnomah, or even from the state of Oregon for unpaid bills that our father racked up and didn't pay for whatever reason?
So I'm going to be honest. So I get all of his mail. So I get fines all the time. But if there's anything in foreclosure, that would be something I would be bringing to his attention. So he paid his bills. It was his fines that he always got fined by the city.
Do you remember in December or earlier this year, our father having a liens placed were on 616 North Beach, where they said he was $40,000 past due?
Yes, I gave you a copy of that. I also sent it to Earl as well, thinking that Earl was going to take care of it.
Are you aware of every deal or every transaction that our father makes with anybody?
I'm not aware of every transaction, every move, or anything he does. But if there's anything about his property, I am aware, and that's because I get all the mail from the revenue place, from the city, all of that. So that's how I'm aware of his status regarding his property.
Then how did you miss Luca not paying father for any of his property if you had all his mail?
I didn't get anything on that. So first of all he knew based on the tax statement, that's when I questioned, the tax statement, and you can look up your property taxes, the sale of those properties, and how much it sold for. But I didn't have the copy of the contract or those details. Don had that information. I did not.
Do you know any of our father's employees?
Employees like people?
Work for the electrical company.
Objection, relevance.
I didn't.
Sustained. You don't have to answer that.
No.
I'm trying to.
I don't know who was working with Dad lately. I know Earl was a plumber, and he did work with Dad. Dad's the electrician, and he was the plumber, and they did jobs together. That's the extent. I don't know every person that Dad picked up derelicts, people who didn't have a lot of money, and he would pay them minimum wage to do work for him. That's all I know. Who he was with last, I have no idea.
Would you say our father was a top flight employer?
What do you mean, top flight?
Well, did he pay workers' comp for people? You said he picked up just people to do work.
He did not.
So do you believe that my father got what he paid for?
Sometimes he did.
How long have you known me to talk about my father? Who trained me?
Your dad and other people in the electrical industry.
How long have I been in the electrical industry working with my father?
I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know if, I won't say that part, but I don't know. I don't know if it's been more than 20 years. I don't know. I don't know exactly when you started working with Dad. I don't recall. If you were 15 or 20, I don't know.
Did you know that as an electrician, we have the Oregon Electrical Board. In order for me to take a license, our father has to verify my work history and hours.
Yes, I do.
Objection, relevance, outside scope.
You don't have to answer that.
Do you know that there's an agency that verifies any work history experience of any electrician?
Objection, relevance, outside the scope.
It's sustained. You don't have to answer.
Do you know how long I've been an electrician?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm trying to ask the question that relates to things that she doesn't know about, that I've worked with my father for over 33 years, and
Well, she doesn't know about Mr. Lee, then why are you asking her the question? The objection is sustained. You can ask your next question.
because she's answering questions like she knows what she's talking about.
You can ask your next question, Mr. Lee.
Okay. Have you done any work for our father?
What do you mean by work?
Have you ever done any type of work for our father? Taking care of his property, electrical work, plumbing work, anything?
I think I was asked this question earlier, and I explained to you that I was the person that would check on his properties and let him know what was going on, if there was any problems or if anybody was reporting anything. But I didn't cut the grass or do electrical work.
So you were never on payroll?
No, Dad didn't pay me a dime for whatever I did or did not do for him.
Did you ever borrow money from our father?
Yes, and Dad borrowed money from me.
What kind of allotments did you borrow from father?
What do you mean?
How much money have you borrowed from our father?
Objection. We're outside the scope, and I'm not sure how relevant this is to whether or not he has capacity and who should be the person to be in charge. At this point, Ms. Martin has not asked to be in charge of anything.
The objection is sustained, so you don't have to answer.
Can you explain the relationship between our father and his siblings?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. You can answer.
Siblings, his brothers and sisters?
Siblings would be our brothers and sisters.
So Dad and his kids?
Yes.
That's what you're asking?
Yes.
You said siblings.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what is the relationship? You want me to explain to you the relationship that you have with Dad?
Or from your perspective.
Okay. I can only talk about what I know, right? You guys didn't agree all the time, and the last past year or so, you guys were not on the same page. He said keep you away from him for whatever reason, when we did talk. But you did work with him, and there were times that you guys were good. But as exactly what extent to your relationship, he had a different relationship with all of us. So I can only speak on my relationship with them and what I saw him do with you, if that makes any sense.
That makes excellent sense. Could your description of my father and I's relationship be about money?
I don't know what the disagreement was, besides he said you would lie on him and you had taken stuff from him. That's all I know. At different times in your life. That's it.
What did he say I took from him?
I don't know what the disagreement was. I don't know if it was tools or you try to take a job from him or what. There was a disagreement between you guys about a falling out about electrical work. That's all I know.
So you can't say me and my father were about the business. Electrical.
I'm sorry, what?
You can't say Greg Sr. and I were both about the electrical
You
business.
did work with him and you did do jobs with him. He helped you get your license. That's all I can say. I know that he got upset about you taking over some type of job because you were doing the work anyway and Dad wasn't paying you but minimum wage and there was a conflict. That's all I know.
No other questions. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Martin, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. You're free to go, okay?
Okay, thank
Take
you.
care. McSnagle, thank you very much for your time as well. Take care. All right, Mr. Lee, your next witness.
Yes, let me go get him. We got Miss Fox back coming.
Okay, thank you.
She had to be at an appointment, can't be here for Thursday, so.
Okay.
And we have two others, and I think we can get them in.
Okay. Hi, Ms. Fosback. You can come on up to the witness stand here. Remain standing. You'll take direction from my clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. And for the record, please say your first and last name and spell them both.
Jacqueline Fosback, JACQUELINE
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Hi, Miss Fosback. Thank you for coming today. Since my father's been out of the hospital in his new location up on 122nd, have you noticed a difference in his appearance?
Yes.
What is he? Can you explain the difference between being in the VA hospital for 6 months and then moving to the 122nd location?
He appears to be more at peace.
Okay. And your experience over this last 6 months dealing with my father, can you explain your experience being on this case?
He's vulnerable. He can't express his own wishes. So it's curious to determine whether or not he understands what's going on.
Did you ever get interviewed by the court visitor, Catherine Garman, concerning my father in the early stages of April of 2024?
I was not.
Do you often get interviewed by the court visitor?
I do.
Okay. How long have you been a guardian or conservator?
My first certification, I want to say, was 2019.
And how do you enjoy being a guardian or conservator? Do you love it or like it, or both?
I love it.
Okay. All right. What do you see in my father's physical or mental health disposition as far as growing or shrinking in the next 6 months?
That's hard to say. With a stroke, you don't, once they get to a certain point in their recovery, they don't normally go in, it doesn't improve. They'll reach a baseline, and it's hard to say if he is already there.
Do you think my father, from your experience with other guardians and conservators, will live for another year?
Yes.
And how does my father, has he ever talked to you?
No.
Does he open his eyes when you come in the room?
Yes.
What is your relationship with Mrs. Fuller, your partner? Meaning, what makes your team work?
Ms. Fuller and I have been business partners since we opened our doors in January of 21, either 21 or 20. But prior to that, we worked as professional fiduciaries for the same agency.
Okay. I have no other questions, John.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. Ms. Wilkes, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Salisbury.
Just a few, Ms. Fosbeck. Since you've had an opportunity to see Mr. Martin since his move to his new care facility, would you believe that he is still in need of a guardian and a conservator?
Yes.
Is he able to make medical decisions?
No.
Is he able to manage finances?
No.
And are you still willing to take on that appointment if the court decides to appoint you as a permanent?
Yes.
Those are all my questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Fosbeck. At this point, is Mr. Martin able to communicate at all about his wishes?
No.
If he regains that ability to communicate his wishes, is that something that you and Ms. Fuller would respect if he did have wishes about his care or his finances?
Absolutely.
And would you bring that to the attention of the court if his condition changed and he were able to start communicating his wishes?
Yes.
And would you communicate with me or any other attorney that he happened to have at the time about any change in his condition?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, Mr. Willie, any redirect?
Following that train about speaking with the guardians or conservators, what would you tell the family?
Well, I would tell the family what Mr. Martin is expressing. I would tell him that, he's able to be involved in making those decisions. And it's important that he has a voice.
Do you think the not talking with my father or him not speaking to you has any significance as maybe it relates he doesn't know you?
That is very possible.
And how do you expect to get to know my father if he doesn't know you and doesn't want to talk to you?
By spending time with him.
And how much time have you spent with my father?
I have been to see him 3 or 4 times at the VA hospital, as well as seeing him at the facility.
Where were you on April 23rd, 2024?
I don't know.
Now that would have been the beginning of the case. My question is, let me reiterate this question. Where were you supposed to be on April 23rd?
I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to have some more as far as what was going on in my business to be able to say where I was or wasn't that day.
So, in regards to a document filed with the court on April the 23rd, 2024, you said you were somewhere you were supposed to be. Where was that?
I don't know. Without having to look at my calendar to see where I was at, I can't tell you where I was on that particular day.
In an emergency petition situation, are you required to speak with the respondent at a particular date or time?
It depends on the situation. And I can't answer that question completely because I don't have anything to look at.
Your Honor, I'd like to offer something into evidence. This was given to the other opposition counsel when we met Thursday.
Okay, can you just show it to me again, make sure they're,
Yes.
they know what it is. Okay, can you just give me a description of what it is, Mr. Williams?
It is a declaration or certificate of delivery to the court concerning my father.
Okay, and so we're on OW.
This is actually respondent's petitioner. No.
You're admitting it, so
Yeah, I'll let you do it.
OW, what letter are we on?
E.
OW, E is a Edward. Any objection from any party?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, that's admitted then. All right, Mr. Lee, go ahead.
May I share this with the
Yes.
Yes, I did deliver that to Mr. Martin.
what time of day?
I don't recall the time of day that I was at the VA hospital.
What happened during your visit with my father on that particular day?
He was not awake. He wouldn't wake up. And it was witnessed by that I was there by hospital staff, and I left it on his tray.
Well, according to this particular document, it says I offered to read
I did. He
To the
didn't
notice.
respond.
and the protected person declined, requested that I do so. He declined. How did he decline?
By not responding. He wouldn't respond.
Your Honor, I offered that into evidence. We'll find out later, but we don't believe that the petitioner, Jacqueline Fosback, was there at that particular date and time. And it's only important, Your Honor, because it's the basis of the notice requirement that my father was to receive this notice. But if we find out later that Mrs. Fosback wasn't there, that is the interest of putting that into the record.
So that exhibit has previously been admitted and remains admitted. Do you have any more questions, Mr. Lee?
Yes, just one other question. I'd like to also admit into evidence a document that I gave to the other council Thursday. This is I'm going to call it a written petition by Christian Hale, who did the research on the Fuller, on the, what do you call it, the history. He wrote an affidavit and submitted it to the court. He was supposed to be here for being asked questions, but the Department of Justice called me and said that he couldn't make it, and they decided to put this into the record, stating that the report.
Okay, so hold on one second. So you're explaining to me what that is, and you've showed it. You've
Yes.
shown it to Ms. Wilkes.
Yes, she said this before, but go ahead.
So what I'm gathering from you is it's a declaration of somebody who's not here today, correct?
Yes.
All right. Any objection, Ms. Salisbury?
No objections.
All right, Mr. Rudolph.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Wilkes.
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, then it's received. That objection will be marked as OW. That's it. Objector relieved, and I think we are now up to F as in Frank. All right, Mr. Relieved, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Fosback. I have no other questions.
Okay, Ms. Fosback, you are free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Relieved, your next witness.
Yes. Our witnesses here. Alicia Liberty.
Hi, Ms. Liberty, you can come on up to the witness stand here, okay? I'll have you remain standing when you get up there, and my clerk will swear you in, okay?
Please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. And for the record, please say your first and last name and spell them both.
Alicia Liberty, ALICIALIBERTY.
Thank you, Mr. Willie.
Thank you for coming, Miss Liberty. Could you explain, if any, your knowing of my father, Gregory Martin Sr.? Have you ever met him?
I have not.
Are you familiar with any of his properties located on 5150-5170, or it's a duplex on Northeast 23rd in Portland, Oregon? Did you purchase that property?
I did.
And who did you purchase the property from?
Gorman Built LLC.
Is that Luca out front there?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed. Which property did you purchase?
It was 5105-5107 Northeast 23rd.
So you're talking a little fast. Can you type that?
Oh, sorry.
5105-5107.
Yes, Northeast 23rd.
And that's Portland.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Willie.
Do you still have ownership of that property?
I do not.
Did you sell the property?
I did.
How did you purchase the property from my father or from Luca?
I seen an ad on Craigslist from a company called Wholesale Kings, and it was advertised for this fixer property on 23rd. It was in extremely bad shape, and that's what we do is we buy homes in bad shape and fix them up and sell them. And so we purchased it at closing, signed, and bought it.
And was Gregory Martin, John Martin's, on any of the titles of the property?
I have the title. I can look and see. I don't recall if he was on the title or not. When we purchase properties via wholesalers, it's pretty common that can I look at my closing documents and see, or?
Any objection?
No
Not
objection.
any, so go ahead.
Okay. I think the preliminary title report might be in here.
Your Honor, I would like to share with the opposing counsel what you might be looking up. This is a
Sure.
document. Thank you. With my father's name on it. If you look on the second page, that's a where we.
What is that?
Thank you.
I'll pass it to you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And we're talking about 5150, the property we're talking about is 5105 and 5107 Northeast 23rd Avenue. I have with me, Your Honor, I'd like to submit into evidence. It is a statutory warranty deed with Gorman Built, and my father is the grantor.
Okay, any objection?
I think my general objection is I'm not sure how this is relevant to the case.
I can explain that.
Well, first I think we kind of like jumped ahead. You wanted to refresh this witness's
Okay,
recollection
gotcha.
with,
Looking
I
up
believe,
I was just looking at.
information. So let's finish that part, and
Okay.
then if you want to introduce something, we can get to that
Okay.
part. So I want to just rewind here.
Okay.
You were looking something up to refresh your recollection as to who you purchased the property from. Is that
Well, I know who I
correct?
purchased the property from because I have the closing document showing who I purchased it from. I was just wondering if on the preliminary title report that I received, if it showed his dad's name at all or if it was just Gorman Built, because
And that's what you were looking for.
that's what I was looking for, and it's
Okay.
not in the file that I have, but I don't know what it is that he possibly had given him, so I was curious to see what that
So the
was.
answer to the question is you looked and it didn't refresh your memory. You don't know the answer to that question. So then,
Can I refresh?
I haven't seen anything.
okay. So with that, Ms. Willie, you're
Can I
next.
give her a copy?
If you think that will help refresh your recollection,
It
that
does.
would be
It's
fine.
got my father's name on it as the grantor.
So this looks like this is between Luca and his father, and so I purchased the property after this was done. So he bought the house for $250,000. It looks like from here. When I bought the home for $430,000 from Luca. So I had nothing to do with this previous thing. I didn't know Luca prior to this, despite what all the paperwork you sent says. Yeah.
Okay, and are you introducing that in evidence?
Yes, I would
Or
like to.
asking to introduce that in
Yes, I
evidence?
would like to.
And I would just like to say this has absolutely nothing to do with me.
Okay, so we're just gonna establish some ground rules. This is a question and answer
Oh, sorry.
program. It's
Okay.
not a free-flowing conversation like we're just hanging out outside.
Okay.
So I'll just ask that you answer the question asked, okay?
Okay.
All right, with that, are you asking to introduce something to evidence, Mr. Walid?
Yes, I am. It's a statutory warranty deed with the incapacitated person's name, my father
All
on
right,
it.
and is there any objection from any party?
Yes, so I'll renew the objection. The purpose of this hearing today and the last 15 days has been whether or not Mr. Martin is incapacitated and who should be able to make decisions for him. I think this could be interesting information at a later hearing about whether or not there was elder abuse that may have occurred. But for this hearing right now, I don't believe it's relevant, and so I would object to the admissions of the evidence at this point.
So, Mr. Walid, how is this relevant to what your argument is for the case?
This is very relevant. We all know that my father, while he was incapacitated, was abused. And we accused
Ms. Wilkes?
Mrs. Wilkes, and we accused
Mr. Wisdom.
Mr. Wisdom.
But
Earl
they're not.
Jack.
But Ms. Wilkes is not asking to be a guardian, so
But no,
all
no,
that stuff about
she-
the report is no longer
Yeah,
relevant.
but in the
For the APS report. So
Okay, but
tell
in
me
the-
why it's relevant.
Well, because
No,
they were putting this, this Mr. Luca was reported in December 23 to Megan Hoffman. And she called this guy and threw him off the hook when he was totally involved in the deception of who he was and stealing property from my father while he was incapacitated.
So that sounds like. So I understand what you're telling me is that piece of evidence would be suggestive of the fact that this gentleman, Lucas Gorman, was not properly investigated by APS. Am I right so far?
Half.
And so what
Neither by the
I
guardians
understand
either.
you're trying to do, Mr. Willie, which I understand before, but now that people have changed what they're arguing, the entire APS report really has become, in my view, irrelevant. So you're trying to attack and saying the APS report, they did a terrible job with, that's what you're trying to tell me. The APS report did a terrible job, they didn't talk to all these people, they didn't investigate Luca Gorman, so I should just disregard the APS report altogether. The reality is now that Ms. Wilkes is not asking to take over for your dad, the APS report is completely irrelevant.
But there's also the court visitor who didn't also do the same research, as well as our guardians, conservators, who knew this information and bypassed it and left it where my father's other assets are just sitting out there.
Okay, now you're getting to something. So let's just digest that issue. So the APS report, it doesn't have any relevance anymore. Now you're attacking the court visitor report because you're saying, hey, the court visitor didn't do a good enough job, therefore, Judge, you shouldn't put much weight on it when you're making your decision, correct?
Correct.
And now you're saying that this whole line of questioning with respect to Luca Gorman, I should be considering that the court reporter didn't do their job appropriately because they didn't effectively investigate Luca Gorman?
And neither did the attorney, nor did the guardian's conservative or their counsel. This has been sitting under our noses for
But what does, I still don't understand how is that relevant as to whether you should be whether you should take over here or whether they should take over.
Well, we're trying to say that because of some type of conflict of interest, they're not looking. I'm looking out for the best interests of my father by going to find these people that was never summoned to court, was never considered
Okay,
to
so
be.
I think what you're saying is the court visitor is they're all in cahoots with Oregon advocates and everybody. And so they're turning a blind eye to things, and so as a result, you want to introduce this evidence to make that point, so that therefore I shouldn't put much weight in the court visitor report. Is that what you're saying?
Or the guardians or the legal counsel, because this is something.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. Now, to that point, Ms. Salisbury.
So a temporary position is just that. And so when someone is appointed for a temporary position, it is within the anticipation of the statute that the permanent hearing would happen within the 30 days or at max the 60 days. At one point, when you are appointed as a permanent guardian, that's when you're able to do a lot of things. We can't even usually get access to bank records in 30 days because it takes the institutions more than 30 days for their legal counsel to approve the documents. So it's when you are appointed on a temporary basis, it's basically putting out fires, getting things frozen, and then being able to move forward. The reality is, when you look at this, the damage occurred in February.
So what I think I'm hearing from you is this goes to the weight, not the admissibility. My only question is whether or not this is admissible as relevant to the court, how much weight it should be given the court visitor report, because it's his argument that everybody's in cahoots on this side of the room. And so that I do find to be relevant. Although you have an argument as to the weight that it should be given. Like, hey, listen, we only have a short amount of time to do all this thing. We can't do, an investigation in, 4 seconds flat. Right? So then it's a question of weight, not admissibility. So that is admitted. We're marking it as OW, and what are we on?
OWG.
Anyone else want to make an objection for the record? All right. OWG is in George. All right, next question. Mr. Boleen.
How long, is this the first transaction that you had on the 5105, 5107 address with Luca Gordon regarding my father's property?
Yes,
Have you ever done work with Luca Gordon before this?
we have not.
Okay. Did you ever hear about, excuse me, did you receive a demand letter for payment for the transaction that took place on 5105 and 5105 and 5107. It would be an affidavit of indebtedness dated November 2023, as well as a demand letter for $3 million for tortious interference with a family contract on that particular property.
No,
Do you recall receiving any letter from Rasta K. Waleed or any about this court proceeding through the mail for the last, say, 3 months?
I got a big packet of stuff from you, Rasta. I probably within the last 3 months, yes.
Okay. And would you consider that notice informing?
I found the notice comical.
And is it comical for an incapacitated person to be taken advantage of?
No, that's not comical.
Well, what was comical in the briefs or the court documents that were sent you concerning Luca Gorman and the objections to the conservator guardianship of my father?
Everything else that was put in those documents about myself, about Luca, about other people, it was very exaggerated and kind of soap opera-y.
Pertaining to, is that why you showed up today to set the record straight?
I was happy to show up today to set the record straight as much as it does, but I showed up today because I had a subpoena.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Were you served the subpoena by process server or did it just come in the mail?
No, somebody came to my door.
Now, you said you received mail from me before. Mm-hmm. It had a phone number, an address, anything up top, an email address. Is there any reason why you never reached out to say anything like, why are you sending me this mail, etc.?
I could tell by what was said on that there was no reason to call and discuss it with you. You had your views of me, and I just don't want to get wrapped up into that business.
Do you, from the information did you receive, doesn't it kind of seem, like funny style business if any of those allegations were true?
It certainly does, but it makes me question all the allegations that are being said based on what was said about me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
However, because you received a process server, can you tell me the time you might have received service or the process server showed up?
Objection, relevance.
Stand. That means you don't have to answer the question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't mind answering.
What I'm trying to ask, was the process server effective?
It was a young girl that came to my front door that said, "Here, this is for you." I didn't sign for it or anything. It was very casual, and it was, yeah. I mean, it was effective that it got to me.
Okay. And of course may I ask what you purchased the property of my father's at 5105 and 5107 for from Luca, his fiduciary?
Let me double check. We bought the house for $447,000.
And according to the document that I just turned in, it was stated that, or shown on the statutory warranty deed, that this particular house sold for, I'm trying to find the price here,
I think it was $250,000.
$250,000.
Yeah, that's what the document that I had just seen, and that's the document that I said that doesn't pertain to me at all. That was something that was done prior to me purchasing the home. Luca bought it for that price. Didn't know Luca prior to that. Seen the ad on Craigslist for this property, a fixer property for sale for, we bought it for $447,000. So that was my part of the transaction.
Do you normally just buy a property, or do you go do your own due diligence, like looking at the statutory warranty deed? Do you do your own due diligence to verify that maybe this particular prospect paperwork was done right, et cetera, et cetera?
Because it goes through the title company, I feel confident in the transaction. There's a title search that's done, and we look to see if there's liens against the property. Typically, we don't do home inspections because we buy the homes in really rough shape and fix them up and then turn around and sell them. So I would have looked at a previous statutory warranty deed that it actually probably showed up on there. Maybe the previous Luca who bought it for $250,000, but it's not uncommon for me to buy a home from somebody who recently purchased a home and they make a profit. They're like the middleman.
Okay. Did you also notice on this statutory warranty deed that my alleged father's name is Gregory A. Martin, not Gregory John Martin?
I wouldn't have seen the statutory warranty deed. It would have just been maybe a line item on the preliminary title report, possibly. I don't even know if it was on there. But even if it did show somebody's name, that was a previous sale. That would have been interest because Luca would have been the owner.
Okay. Regardless of an apology for any disrespect to you in any mailing or anything that you got, we're digging for facts. My question to you, if looking at any of these documents today with the information that you have from this statutory warranty deed, do you see anything that might look deceptive?
Looking at what I haven't read that whole deed, or that whole statutory warranty deed, but no, I don't see anything deceptive. I mean, that home was in extremely poor shape. A lot of people would have considered it to be a tear down, so it would have been maybe but I mean, it was in very, very bad shape.
I've seen it, so it looks better. My question is that in this courtroom today, we have an attorney representing my father and a guardianship that was given 6 months of time to do any research and had some of this information but failed to look at it. If this was your father who was incapacitated, and you live in, say, another state, New York, whatever, and you find out that your father's losing a lot of property, and then you start looking into things and you start noticing names, signatures that don't match. Gregory J says Gregory A. Would you have any concerns or start looking into the particular matter?
I think everybody has the right to start looking into things if they're a little bit concerned. I wish maybe you would have looked into things a little bit more instead of saying I was involved in. I guess I'm not supposed to talk, am I? Am I talking too much?
You can answer the question.
Okay. Saying I was involved in deceptive practices and that I was involved in 3 homes that I had absolutely nothing to do with, that I was in cahoots with Luca and the title company. And then looking at the paperwork that I was served today, saying that I broke into homes and stole jewelry out of properties, that things just are completely untrue. Like, ridiculous.
So, it sounds like hearsay. There's no
It sounds
factual evidence.
it sounds like we have a lot of hearsay going on.
Yes. So to get to the bottom of all of it, the question is, if you were the attorney of your father who's incapacitated, wouldn't you be interested in any information that might lead to the discovery of lost assets which pays your fees?
I mean, you have every right to look into it.
Now, if this was your father, would you be looking at his attorney asking the same question? Why aren't you looking into this stuff?
I would probably do it a slightly different way. I'd look into it a little bit more. I'd probably go to my father. You have every right to do what you want to do.
Thank you. My father's incapacitated. Did you know that?
That's what it says on there.
Do you believe?
I'm going to just pause because, Mr. Lee, I distinctly recall asking you last time we were here, the petitioner asked if you would stipulate that your father was incapacitated, and you said no, that you believed he was not incapacitated, and in fact you planned to present a video to the court where he allegedly spoke with you, and also in your pleadings he allegedly is not incapacitated yet. Now today, I don't know how many times you've mentioned that he's incapacitated. So is your father, are you arguing your father is incapacitated or he's not incapacitated?
I'm arguing he's been incapacitated since March of 2024.
Okay, so do you stipulate for purposes of this case that he's incapacitated?
I stipulate that he is incapacitated. However, the video was just to show that my father doesn't speak to people he doesn't know.
Okay, so you're offering it for a different purpose. So are you asking for a stipulation, Ms. Salisbury, re-raising your request to stipulate that for purposes of this indefinite guardianship case and conservatorship case, the protected person is incapacitated? Are you asking that stipulation be resurrected?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Rudolph, any objection to that?
No, Your Honor. Would have been nice to take care of this 4 days ago.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Waleed, are you in agreement to the stipulation that for purposes of this case, your father is incapacitated? There are other elements to this case, but that's just one of them.
Yes, and I'm
That
looking
way
for...
we're not wasting time talking about things we all agree about.
Yeah, yes, I believe he is. I just haven't seen the proof from the ethics committee, from the adult protective services.
All right, I need your answer. Do you stipulate that he's incapacitated or not?
Yes, that he cannot fend for himself, he can't feed himself, and he cannot take care of his own financial.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wilkes, do you stipulate that for purposes of this case that Mr. Martin Sr. is incapacitated?
I haven't seen Mr. Martin since March of 2024, but based on the testimony and the description of what various individuals give, I would have
So
to
that's a yes, you
along.
stipulate?
Yes.
All right, last chance. Everyone is stipulating that for purposes of this case, Mr. Martin Sr., your dad, is incapacitated. All right, we're all in agreement with that, so we no longer need to address that issue. Thank you. Now, we're at 4:30. We're going to end at 4:45. So how much more time do you think you have with this witness?
I have no more questions. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
So, ma'am, there are other people that may have questions for you.
Oh,
I'll start with Ms. Wilkes.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Did you know Mr. Martin prior to this
What?
sale transaction?
No. I didn't even know him during the transaction. He wasn't privy to the transaction at all. It was between me and Luca.
Did you purchase a lot of advertised homes off of Craigslist?
Not Craigslist. It's rare to find them on Craigslist, but we purchased a lot of homes from wholesalers.
Okay. You indicate that you rehabbed the home. What was the selling price of the rehab?
I think it was $1,200,000 approximately, somewhere around there.
Okay. Could you share is this home located in the Alberta Arts area?
Yes, it is.
In the heart of the Alberta Arts area?
I mean, I would say it's right there, yeah.
Yeah, very prestige area.
Your Honor, I need to go to the bathroom. Just a quick leak. I mean, I don't say testimony has to stop because they're asking questions. I'll be right back before that.
Well, we're going to end for the day then.
Okay.
Because testimony does have to stop if you're not here.
Okay.
So we're going to go off the record, but we are going to come back for some scheduling purposes in 10 minutes, okay? Ma'am, you are free to go for the day, but you're still under subpoena. You will need to be here for our next trial date. If you want to take a step, just have a seat back there. We'll let you know what date and time that is, okay?
All right.
I'll be back in 10 minutes.